All right, let's dive right in. We're about to take on one of the biggest, most fundamental assumptions we all have about leadership. We all think we know what a good leader is supposed to look like. Empathetic, honest, inspiring. But what if I told you that in some situations, those very qualities could be the exact reason a leader fails?
Just think about it for a second. If I asked you to just list the top traits of a great leader, you'd probably say empathy, honesty, maybe being a good listener. It seems so obvious, right? I mean, these are just universally good things. Or are they?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. When we actually look at the data from thousands and thousands of people across nearly 100 countries, a much more complicated picture starts to show up. The data basically shows that what one group of people sees as an absolutely essential leadership quality, another group might see as a huge liability.
Okay, so this number right here, this is the key to the whole puzzle. In statistics, this is what you'd call a pretty strong negative correlation. All that means is that as one thing goes up, the other thing goes down. In this case, it shows that people who really prioritize a competitive, results-driven worldview are way less likely to want an empathetic leader. And they don't just ignore it. The data suggests they actually see it as a negative. So what in the world is going on here?
To figure this out, to solve this paradox, we need a map, but not a personality map. A map of worldviews. And that framework is called spiral dynamics. It's the key that unlocks why leadership is so incredibly dependent on context.
So what is spiral dynamics, really? You can think of it as a model that just describes how our values change and evolve over time. As our life conditions change, things like the economy, how stable our community is, or the specific challenge our team is facing right now, so do our deepest beliefs. And the model uses colors, not to put people in boxes, but just as shorthand to describe these different ways of seeing the world.
And this is why it is so powerful for the question we're asking today. This model just brilliantly shows that there is no single best way to lead. The exact same quality, like empathy, can be the glue that holds one team together, and the very thing that signals weakness and gets a leader rejected by another. It really all comes down to the context.
Okay, so let's put this map to work. We're going to start by zooming way in on one specific value system, what the model calls green. For a green worldview, which really prioritizes things like community, inclusion, and authentic connection, certain leadership qualities aren't just a nice bonus. No, they are the whole foundation.
And you can see it right here in the data. We've got a clear positive correlation. That means the more someone thinks from this green worldview, the more important honesty is in a leader. But here's the kicker. For the green worldview, honesty means something so much deeper than just not telling lies. This quote from the source material just nails it. For this green value system, honesty isn't about being polite or even about brutal truth-telling. It's the absolute foundation of trust. It's all about creating an environment where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to throw out a crazy idea without getting shut down, and to just show up as they are, without the professional mask.
So the whole point here is that for green, honesty isn't just a value. It's the infrastructure that makes real teamwork possible. It's what allows for those authentic relationships, which in turn builds the psychological safety you need to get genuine consensus and true collaboration. Without that honest, transparent foundation, everything else just feels fake.
But, and this is a huge but, this deeply relational, feelings-first view of leadership is not universal, not even close. Let's take a look at how other value systems, which were forged in totally different life conditions, look at these exact same qualities. And wow, the contrast is pretty shocking.
I mean, just look at this. It is night and day. On the left, you've got green with its positive correlation. More green values, more appreciation for empathy. But on the right, you have orange with the strongest negative correlation in the entire data set. For the orange system, which is all about achievement, winning, and results, empathy isn't just a distraction, it's viewed as a fundamental flaw in the system.
From the orange worldview, empathy actually undermines a meritocracy. It encourages you to make exceptions for people based on their feelings, not their performance. It slows down the tough decisions that need to be made to win. From this perspective, the goal is to set a high bar and achieve it, not to make sure everybody feels heard. It's not heartless. It's seen as strategic.
And then there's the red value system, which really tends to show up in chaotic or crisis situations. And it sees things even more clearly. In conditions that demand speed and power and dominance, empathy looks like a dangerous weakness. When survival is on the line, a team doesn't need a therapist. It needs a decisive commander who can cut through all the noise and just give clear orders.
And finally, you have blue, which is the value system of order, structure, and tradition. Now, blue also rejects empathy and active listening, but for a totally different reason. For blue, the system, the rules, the hierarchy, the process, that's what guarantees fairness and stability for everyone. Empathy and listening create exceptions, and exceptions threaten to unravel the very structure that gives everything order and meaning.
So, as we start to pull all these different threads together, the paradox we started with begins to resolve itself. It becomes really clear that this isn't a simple story of good leaders versus bad leaders, or evolved values versus old-fashioned ones. It's a story about fit. And this really brings us to the core insight of this whole explainer. Effective leadership isn't about having one perfect, fixed style. It's about matching the style to the circumstances. A green leader is absolutely perfect for a collaborative nonprofit, but they might fail spectacularly in a high-stakes crisis where what you really need is a decisive red-style commander. It's the context that decides what works. Now, before we conclude that green has everything figured out, we have to ask a pretty critical question. Even when it's in the right context, can this intense focus on honesty and emotional processing go too far? Can a strength, when you overuse it, actually become a weakness?
And the answer is a big yes. When it's unchecked, green's greatest virtues can become pretty dysfunctional. Honest feedback can be used as a weapon to disguise criticism. A demand for total vulnerability can completely violate professional boundaries. And the need to process every single feeling can lead to this analysis paralysis, where no real work ever gets done. It just goes to show you, every value system has its wisdom, but it also has its potential pitfalls.
So, where does all of this leave us? Well, this whole explainer is really about giving you a new, more powerful lens to look at leadership with, whether you're a leader yourself or you're just trying to make sense of the ones you work with.
Here's the simple, practical takeaway. The next time you're evaluating a leader, try to stop asking that universal question, are they a good leader? Instead, ask the contextual question, are they the right leader for this team facing this challenge in these circumstances? That simple shift in the question you ask can change absolutely everything.
Ultimately, this data doesn't give us a final answer, but it gives us a much, much better question. It pushes us beyond these simplistic labels of good and bad and invites us to become way more aware of the context that we're actually in. Because the most effective leadership isn't about having a fixed set of ideal traits. It's about having the wisdom to know what the moment truly needs.